Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yuwen. I'm a third-year PhD student advised by Dr. Nkang Che. I'm happy to present this work on behalf of my collaborators. Our works aim to enable older adults to provide high-quality activity labelers. Activity trackers can measure one's physical activities through step counts, heart rate, and distance. However, older adults often experience inaccurate issues when they use those activity trackers. For example, the activity trackers can incorrectly counting the wake-up times, steps, and stride distance. Specifically, activity trackers can show less accuracies when detecting low exertion activities involving slow gaze and brief movements. For example, those slow walkings and bendings, despite those activities, can be important for older adults. To improve the accuracies, high-quality labels are typically required to personalize and fine-tune the activity recognition models. Activity labels include name and its time spent. Here, we contextualize the high-quality labels in three aspects: accuracy, precision, and granularities. You can understand them as accurately timed, correctly classified, consistently categorizing similar activities under same conditions, and granular in semantics and contextual specifics as needed. Collecting high-quality labels is challenging, not only because of user burden, but also the gap between the user mental models and the system requirements. To bridge these gaps, these papers aim to answer two research questions. First, what are the older adults' perception of high-quality labels, specifically data accuracy, precision, and granularity in activity labeling? Second, what are the strategies preferred by older adults to collect high-quality labels through the interaction with a teachable activity tracker? We adopt a machine teaching paradigms, which empowers end user without much machine learning backgrounds to train machine learning models and create personalized technologies that serve their personal needs. Specifically, older adults act as a teacher, actively select and label the activity examples, while the machines serve as the learners, enhance the model based on the example specifics to individual contexts and preferences. We conduct co-design studies with 12 older adults. We adopt a scenario-based design method and design prompts regarding the user-initiated labeling and machine-initiated prompting strategies. In our findings, we examined the participants' understanding of activity labelings, the challenges, and their preferred strategies regarding accuracy, precision, and granularity. Due to the time limit, I'll only focus on the granularity, but I'm happy to chat more details later. We observe a trade-off between the granularity and the user burden. Specifically, providing a fine-grained labels can increase the labeling burdens, while the coarse-grained labels can reduce the burdens. So P8 give examples of fine-grained labels for gardening. She called it planting garlic bulbs and harvesting the tomatoes. And then she highlights, the more refined you are in categories, and the harder it is to draw a line between them. When fine-grained labels is necessary, participants would like to understand the teaching benefits with such labels. P8 desired to create a tool that tracks the progress towards her goal, including the strength, resistance, weight bearings, and cardio. Participants suggest ways to manage the labeling burdens. One way is to iteratively adjust granularity across different training stages. For example, P2 would like to provide fine-grained labels for training a basic model and then increase or reduce granularity if he sees or does not see the benefit through evaluating the models. Another way is to adjust the granularities based on the timing of activities, such as before, during, or after. And P1 gave an example of a placeholder term, P-doing, and she would like to revise and refine it later. Overall, our study unpacked older adults' understanding of high-quality activity labels, preferred strategies, And we demonstrate that older adults can engage in training a personalized activity tracker through the data labeling. And we inform the future design of personalized activity trackers that are more inclusive and accessible to older adults. Thanks for listening, and happy to answer more questions.
Hi everyone, I'm Mengyun Li, a first-year PhD student at Info College, and am very excited to present our work identifying design opportunities for behavior displacement for intervening sedentary time among older adults. This research explores how we can design more thoughtful and context-aware interventions to reduce sedentary behavior among older adults. Prolonged sedentary behavior is a critical risk factor for a range of negative health outcomes, including sarcopenic obesity and reduced bone mineral density. For older adults, these risks are compounded by age-related changes and multifactorial influences such as personal habits, environmental barriers, and behavioral norms all play a role. This highlights the importance of designing personalized interventions that account for the lived experiences of older adults. One promising approach is behavior displacement, which refers to reallocating sedentary time to time spent in more active postures or movements. This could include standing during phone calls, walking meetings, or taking brief movement breaks throughout the day. Displacement is especially relevant for older adults, for whom light-intensity activities are often more realistic and acceptable. Still, there's a gap in understanding how older adults perceive and adopt these strategies in their real life. Despite promising intervention models, we still know relatively little about how older adults themselves view sedentary time or how willing they are to displace it in different contexts. Moreover, most existing systems overlook the agency of older adults, their values, preferences, and decision-making process. This leads to our research question. How do older adults decide whether and how to displace their sedentary behavior? Our goal was to unpack this decision-making process and identify opportunities for designing interventions that align with their everyday routines and priorities. To answer this question, we conducted a 7-day diary study with older adults, which allowed us to capture in-situ data. Participants submitted entries through a Google form with optional audio recordings, and we followed up with a semi-structured debriefing interview to explore their thoughts deeply. We collected contextual data, including participants' activity types, location, timing, digital device use, posture, and social context. Importantly, we also asked participants to reflect on whether they consider displacing sedentary activities, how they would do so, and what barriers they faced. We gathered 332 entries in total from 13 participants, aged 65 to 83. Overall, 67% of entries showed willingness to displace sedentary behavior. We first look at the reasons why older adults do or do not display sedentary behavior. On the yes side, people were motivated by physical discomfort or responsibilities that required movement, such as daily chores and household management tasks. But on the no side, several barriers emerged, including attention demands, activity productivity and quality, as well as physical fatigue and social norms. Specifically, for attention demands, activities requiring deep focus, like religious practices or online meetings, were less likely to be displaced. There were concerns about productivity and quality. Some participants feared that moving would interrupt their flow or diminish the enjoyment of the activity. When displacement was attempted, it was often context-driven. Participants didn't think in terms of exercise, but rather in terms of opportunistic movement, like stretching during a TV ad break or walking around after completing a focused task. We found both sequential and concurrent displacement strategies, sometimes replacing an activity entirely, other times integrating movement while keeping the activity going. Here, we listed detailed subtypes of both sequential and concurrent displacement strategies we identified in our participants' diaries. This shows that displacement isn't a binary shift, it's an adaptable strategy. From these findings, we propose several design directions, like leverage low attention moments, such as pauses between tasks, to prompt displacement rather than interrupting high-focus activities. Design routine respecting interventions is critical. Rather than replacing sedentary activities, integrate small movements into what people already do. Lastly, develop context-aware JITI systems. Just-in-time adaptive interventions should incorporate not just physical data, but also social and attentional context to provide meaningful and personalized prompts. These insights can inform systems that are both respectful and effective for older adults. Thank you for listening. This study is currently under submission to IMA 2025, and we look forward to hearing your thoughts or questions.
My name is Reipu Hu, and I'm a PhD candidate at the College of Information at the University of Maryland. Today, I'm excited to share a work under review titled An Object-Centered Approach to Study Technology Use with People with Cognitive Concerns. This project is in collaboration with Associate Professors In-Kyung Choi and Amanda Lazar, also at the College of Information. Past work in HCI supporting older adults aging in place has demonstrated the potential of studying and designing around objects to support different activities. For example, Brereton et al. Designed around an everyday water kettle of an older adult with a messaging system to support socializing while staying at home. Objects are especially helpful when supporting people with cognitive concerns. For example, tracking object states like whether a stove is on or off can help prevent risks and support routines of people with cognitive impairments at home. Video conferencing technology is becoming a ubiquitous medium through which many people with cognitive concerns engage in everyday activities, including socializing, skill learning, health consultations, and religious practices. Recent studies found objects were part of their VCUs, including personal tools and artifacts. To support people with cognitive concerns better engage in different activities through VC, we're still missing a comprehensive understanding of what and how these objects come into play. Therefore, we asked the following two questions in the study. First, what types of objects do people with cognitive concerns interact with in the context of a video call? And second, what object qualities support the cognition of people with cognitive concerns during a call? To understand how objects come into play, we collected data through a modified diary study over the course of a week with 10 participants with subjective cognitive decline or mild cognitive impairment. We coupled this modified diary study with interviews and observation of video conferencing use to surface participant interaction with these objects. We analyzed the data using reflexive thematic analysis. Through operating with the definition of an object as something you can see, hear, smell, touch, or taste, we generated 6 main categories to encompass these objects. As might be expected, this included 2 categories that closely associated with video conferencing technology: hardware, software, and web platforms. We also found other kinds of objects, including paper-based objects, personal items, objects in the built environment, and pets, animals, and weather, which we group in an other category. We also identified 28 subcategories breaking down across the 6 main categories. For example, under main category of personal items, we included subcategory body-worn items such as hearing aid and glasses that support hearing and vision during a video call. To answer RQ2, we identified 3 object qualities: grabbable, glanceable, and grounding. We found these qualities of objects support participants' cognitive functioning during a video call. For example, grabbable support cognitive continuity, recall, and memory. Glanceable helps support temporal recall and direct visual focus, and grunting contribute to the ambience of an environment that supports attention. Using Grabbable as an example, grabbable objects are items within arm's reach. This placement allows participants to easily pick them up with their hands during video calls. These objects are often distributed across nearby surfaces, including desks, dining tables, coffee tables, side tables, and even the floor. We found grabbable objects can support cognitive continuity, recall, and memory. For example, in this image of P6 professional VC meeting, we observed she had stacked paper sheets as grabbable objects in front of her to help recalling semantic information, including other attendees' names and their background information, which she otherwise had difficulty remembering during a video call. One insight our findings point to is understanding and designing with object qualities in mind for people with cognitive concerns and other kinds of abilities and disabilities, again, using Grabbable as an example. We encourage retaining and incorporating grabbable objects in video conferencing design. In our study, we found a range of grabbable objects like cameras, microphones, printed documents, where people grab to make physical adjustments during a video call for different cognitive purposes, including receiving semantic information to help with their recall difficulty, like the example I showed earlier. But when these objects become embedded throughout the home as something envisioned in ubiquitous computing and increasingly common with smart home technology, people with cognitive impairments may lose the ability to make those adjustments manually. So, keeping physical controls like switches and buttons rather than entirely rely on app-based systems may better support user agency in such near-future settings. With that, I'd like to thank all my co-authors, our founder, for their contributions to this work. Please feel free to email me with any questions or comments. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jian Zheng. I'm excited to present our study from awareness to action. Ambient display for self-regulated smartphone usage, co-authored with Subin and Ingen. I guess everyone in this room has a smartphone. I'd like to ask, how much time do you spend on it each day? And how do you spend that time? About 2 years ago, I presented our study waiting time activities here. We found that people spend the majority of their waiting time on leisure, such as watching short videos or playing games. Well, it's totally fine to have some relaxing time, but the problem arises when people enter a flow state where they lose track of time and they spend too much time on their phone. This problematic smartphone usage can cause negative consequences. So how can we control smartphone usage? Researchers developed a lot of tools to control phone usage, and most of them work through 4 strategies: blocking, self-tracking, reward or punishment, and goal setting. Due to time limit, I will focus on self-tracking. It involves an app tracking and displaying the usage data, which the user views and reflects, and ideally leading to action. This tracking data could be quite rich in information, but many such tools only provided very limited exposure to the data. Or the users could check the data manually, but usually they are not motivated to do so too frequently. And those tools were barely effective. How can we make better use of the tracking data and make those interventions more effective? We propose to incorporate ambient display with self-tracking. Ambient display is always on, displaying important but not critical information in the periphery of our attention. For example, this ambient light can reflect recent physical activity to prevent sedentary behavior. In our case, we designed a timer to display the current session length on the status bar, which is visible during most phone usage. And you may wonder, isn't that too easy to ignore? Yeah, We had the same concern, and we added customizable attention signals to increase the visibility when needed. Each participant first set up a threshold after which they will see, hear, or feel the four modalities of attention signals, including the blinking animation, the toast message, the sound, and the vibration. And each modality had 3 options of frequency. And now let's return to the problem. People forget to check the time, and we offer attention signals as reminders. And they underestimate the duration. We present the duration in the ambient display. Now let's see the evaluation. We evaluate in 3 weeks. Week 1 was the baseline with no intervention. Week 2 had only the ambient display. And week 3 had both the ambient display and the attention signals. We collected data on their phone usage behavior and their motivation to control it. So was it effective? Yes. Session length was reduced. The unlock frequency did not change. And the daily screen time was reduced by 10% in week 2 and 20% in week 3, which was 70 minutes. So how would you like to get 70 minutes back each day? And did the participants feel forced to reduce the phone usage? No. Actually, they reported an increased sense of competency. They feel this timer trained them to be better, to be more aware of their screen time. They also reported a strong sense of autonomy. This timer gave them the space to do it on their own, to decide whether to stop or continue, instead of telling them, hey, you should stop. Still, they have some concerns. This timer could be distracting during justified usage, while not noticeable enough during problematic usage. We may need a more intelligent, adaptive ambient display, which will fade if I'm, say, replying an email, but will become more and more noticeable if I'm scrolling on social media endlessly, like yelling at me louder and louder. We believe the incorporation of ambient display and sub-tracking opens new possibilities for digital well-being tools that are supportive rather than restrictive. If you have Android phone, please try our demo, or you can try it on my phone. Thank you for listening. I'm happy to take any questions.